You just feel like you're a prisoner in your own home.
You would never think that that would be your routine, looking out the peephole before you walk outside every day. Mm-hmm. Now, since that has happened, I can't even hear a knock without my heart jumping.
We did call the bank and tell them that we needed some help with our loan because we started getting behind on our mortgage.
But we just could not even dig with a shovel out. Before you knew it, we were homeless. I remember going to REI and looking at tents that will hold a family of 5. And then I remember at the homeless shelter, when they escorted us to our room, I remember laying on a bottom bunk and looking up at the springs that you look at on a bunk bed. And I remember saying to myself, how did I get here? I remember walking to the shelter after work at school, and, the school bus is pulling up, and I knew the school bus driver. I remember pulling my hood over my head because I was embarrassed. I didn't want her to see me, or a colleague says, we're going to go volunteer and we're going to feed the families, and it would be at my shelter. And I would tell my husband, we cannot be here for Sunday dinner because the colleagues from my job are going to be serving food.
We're living in transitional housing right now.
Now we have at the dinner table the circle of thanks, and each one of us go around and we say what we're thankful for. Our boys, they're at that stage in which they're thankful for their Pokemon cards, but we're thankful that we can come together with our food, with the lights on, with the heats on, and knowing that we are there to be blessed to wake up another day.
I have listened to that segment 20 times, and I absolutely love the way Sherry pronounces the word Pokemon cards. I can't get enough of it. So, good afternoon. My name is Dina Zemsky, and along with my colleague, Kate Duff, we are here today from the public media company StoryCorps, and we have the honored position of hosting the after lunch bunch. So we're going to try to be really, really interesting and not just keep you awake, but keep you really enthusiastic about our program. We're joined by Stan Richards, the Senior Vice President of the Fortune Society, and Derek Kelly, a tenant at Castle Gardens, to discuss the therapeutic power of storytelling. During our time together today, we will share some stories from our StoryCorps archive, just as you listened to this morning with Dave Isay. We're going to examine the value of storytelling in therapeutic work, and we're also going to provide you with a platform to record and share the stories of your tenants. So this morning, you heard from our president and founder, Dave Isay, and you learned that StoryCorps is one of the largest oral history projects of its kind. Since 2003, we've collected and archived almost 60,000 interviews through our recording booths in Atlanta, Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, and through a wonderful Airstream trailer, which is retrofitted as a recording booth and travels all around the country recording stories. That's the program I direct, so I'm just giving it a little bit of an extra boost right now. StoryCorps interviews are designed to record conversations between people who are part of one another's lives. We provide our participants with a list of great questions, but many of our favorite interviews develop organically and reflect on a narrative or series of narratives from someone's life. Each interview is recorded on a free CD to share, and with consent is preserved at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. Recently, StoryCorps has developed an app which takes the recording process out of the recording booth and allows an interview to be recorded on a smartphone. Later in the program, Kate will be walking us through that process, and Stan and Derek will be sharing about their experience of recording an interview on the app last week. And even more exciting, we will be playing for you an edited version of Derek and Stan's interview. First time being heard by the listening public in this room today. So let's now listen to one of our national broadcasts. This is George Hill speaking about a transformative moment.
We had the car repossessors there.
Oops.
We had the bank knocking on the door. We had the car repossessors.
Look at that. There we go.
Here we go. This is George Hill. He's speaking about a transformative moment in his homelessness, and this was recorded in Santa Monica, California.
I was homeless 12 years, and I can't even begin to tell you the misery of rain. I don't even care how slight the rainfall is. It was misery beyond belief. And then sometimes you sleep during the day because it's warm enough to sleep, and then at night you keep moving so you don't freeze. And I used to watch people get on the buses, and I used to say, you know, those are normal people. And you felt anything but normal. One time, I just happened to be sitting on this bag, because if you didn't carry your blankets or your jackets around in a bag, they were gone. And here comes a homeless man. So dirty, it was just awful. I mean, his hands were like black with the exception of his knuckles and joints where the bone had kind of rubbed through the dirt. He had rags tied on his feet, and his hair was matted in two big, nasty dreads. And out of all the people in Skid Row, he looked down at me and reached in his pocket and pulled out $1 and change. That's all he had, and he gave it to me and said, "Here, man, I feel sorry for you." And he shuffled away. Something about that moment changed everything. I just said, oh, no. I'm going to get some help. With that $1 and change, I caught the bus, and I went to the psych unit in the hospital. You know, I still think about it sometimes, and I don't have regrets for anything that happened, because going through the homelessness just made me so grateful, determined, thankful, and now, every time it rains and I have keys in my pocket, I have a joy of life that you cannot believe. I was homeless 12 years, and I can't even begin to tell you the misery.
So, stories have been delivered through different narrative and media outlets ever since the Cro-Magnon man figured out that mineral pigments can be applied to the side of a cave. And what you're looking at here, if you can see the bottom of the photograph, is a picture of a set of caves in Lascaux, France, famous for Paleolithic cave paintings 17,000 years old. So I guess this is very, very, very early StoryCorps. Okay. In ancient Greece, it wasn't enough to create something that was beautiful, but also utilitarian, and designs on this urn also told a story. Even in contemporary times, our favorite artists describe a story through their works. This is a favorite painting of mine. It's Edward Hopper's Nighthawks, and it's from the collection of the Whitney Museum, and it's on display at their new museum setting downtown in Manhattan. Take a minute and see if you can find the story for you in this wonderful painting. So, why do we tell stories? Anyone want to give that one a shot? Up. Can you stand up?
We tell stories to share history, information,
And why do you think storytelling is so important for people who are formerly homeless? Oops, stand up.
To establish some form of connection with those who are not homeless.
Excellent. Good. Thank you so much. Both of those things are written right here on my paper, so you may hear me quoting you. So I'm going to start with my own story. About 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with the director of the women's shelter at the Park Avenue Armory. Has anyone here been there? That massive, massive, beautiful structure that no one knows there's a women's shelter upstairs because there's so many state-of-the-art fancy art exhibits happening downstairs. But I did go to the shelter prior to its most recent renovation. And as she took me on the tour of the facility, we entered a room that in some prior iteration had been an enormous indoor tennis court. And that entire room was covered in shelves that were filled from floor to ceiling with big green trash bags. Each trash bag contained people's belongings, their possessions that they had left behind as they transitioned to new housing situations. I was dumbstruck that day, moved to tears by the loss exemplified in that collection of possessions. It struck me then, as it does now, how it is important it is that our stories are honored, even as we shift through different physical settings in our lives. And that image keeps coming to view to me in the last couple of weeks as I've been thinking about speaking with you today and how important this topic is. So we know that telling a story is a rare experience. It's an uninterrupted, intentional, and oftentimes intimate encounter where one person honors another by asking and listening to the story of his life. It demonstrates respect. Story builds community through identifying and recognizing bonds and commonality between people. The simple act of sitting down and sharing a personal story is a powerful way to bring people together over mutual experiences. I suspect that community building is a part of what many of you aim to create in your jobs in supportive housing, and the simple activity of sharing a story can bring people together in mutual affirmation. Here in the next segment, which I'm going to play for you, a wonderful gentleman by the name of Van Harris and his wife Shirley describe growing up in Brooklyn in the 40s and their favorite diner.
I met her when she was about 10 years old, and she was beating up a couple of guys. The boys had taken her hat off her head, and they were tossing it around. She said, "Give me back my hat." They wouldn't. So one by one, she punched out every boy. I said, "Geez, I'd like to meet a girl like that." Later on, I used to take you with me when we'd go to our hangout, which was Dubrow's Cafeteria.
We'd come in late at night, we'd have a cup of coffee, and then who was our friend who would have dinner?
Oh, Herbie the Nibbler. He ate so much.
And they gave him a discount on his
Oh,
food.
they sure did at Dubrow's. Here comes Herbie. So they give him a table, and he'd sit all by himself, and we'd gather around and watch Herbie the Nibbler eat. We used to
He
say...
had a tapeworm.
He didn't have a tapeworm. We used to say he has a snake. And we had a guy called One Ball Barney. I don't think I have to explain it. And there was a guy named Mendel Berman. Mendel had a leaky ear. And he'd go to dances, and he'd sit there, and he'd put a handkerchief in his ear. And it was a terrible habit. He would smell the handkerchief. How could you pick up a girl when you're there sniffing a handkerchief that's got the deposit from a bad ear, you know? But that's the way these guys were. Oh, Shirley, you grew up with these fellows, too. They loved her.
Yeah, we'd sit around and everybody would be telling jokes. You just felt at home.
Filthy Milty was my friend, and when we got married, Filthy Milty was our babysitter, and he was crazy as a bedbug. While we were out, wherever we went, he would take the dresser drawers and he would exchange them. He moved the top drawer to the bottom, the middle drawer to the top, so if we went looking for, let's say, underwear, it wasn't in the same place. This was Milty.
And it turned out that all of our children have a great sense of humor as a result of being surrounded with these guys. And I'd say to you today, thank you for a wonderful life.
Well, thank you.
So I am a former geriatric social worker, and I use this segment frequently at the senior center at St. Peter's Church, part of Lenox Hill Neighborhood Houses Senior Services. And I would use it to engage socially isolated seniors in a senior center memoir group. And sharing stories of youth and community often brings people together and helps them to realize their similarities and solidify their bonds. And it was amazing to sit in a group of seniors who said, I don't want to be in this group. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to share. You play them a segment, and suddenly everyone is talking about where they hung out as a kid. And then everyone realized that indeed they were all very much in the room with people very much similar to them. And we couldn't push them back out of the room at the end of the hour. So please go to our website. All of our broadcast segments are there. And if the end of today's workshop, you think of ways that you can use our stories to encourage and support and engage your tenants, please try it. It's kind of magic. Stories help to build trust and strengthen bonds between tenants and case managers. Your tenants have lost so much that the act of sharing a personal story is an enormous gift, as they are trusting you with that part of themselves. Stories develop self-efficacy as we examine together the arc of someone's life story, and we highlight their tale of survivals, strengths, and success. I know you can listen to a story that a tenant may perceive as a story of great loss, and also be able to hear and point out the strength and legacy that is demonstrated there. Erik Erikson, the noted developmental psychologist and psychoanalyst, spoke about the need in later life development to balance integrity and despair by reflecting on the story of one's life. We're next going to listen to a story that demonstrates just this, and also demonstrates the preserving of a legacy. Here you are going to hear 96-year-old Anna Weiss.
I met her when she was about 10 years old.
This is 96-year-old Anna Weiss reflecting with her daughter, Mary, on the story of her life. And Anna has Alzheimer's, and I'm letting you know that because, well, you'll tell me what you think after you hear the interview, okay?
I knew Pop when we were children. I was 8 and he was 11, and I was madly in love with him, and I thought surely that I would marry him when I was old enough.
So how did you go about bagging him?
Well, I was sassy. I turned on all the tricks that I knew and winked an eye or two now and then.
Do you remember your first date?
Yes, I remember that. He took me to a baseball game. I was perfectly willing to go there or anywhere else. We danced the night away. We went to speakeasies. We did all the things you're not supposed to do. And to make a long story short, which people are not fond of doing, we just sort of agreed it was time to get married.
What year was that?
This was 1933.
And what was the day?
What was the date? Well, it's been so long ago, I guess I don't remember.
November 11th.
November the 11th, correct.
Tell me about taking care of Pop when he got sick.
Well, your father was diagnosed with diabetes. He lost a leg. then the diabetes took him anyway. We never know what diseases are going to catch up with us. It's amazing the things that people can live through when they have to. So you get through it. And you get through almost anything. And you live to be 96. And sometimes you wonder why. But then when you look up at the blue sky, you think it's going to be all right.
I have Anna's quote about the blue sky taped on my computer, and it helps me get through just about everything. So I think that segment really demonstrates the balance between integrity and despair, and also the need to find legacy at end of life. It's amazing to me that a 3-minute segment can demonstrate all of that so beautifully. Anna has Alzheimer's, and I think what we really hear in this segment is that lady is still right there, alive in that body, and that personhood is still really there. So it's just a beautiful piece to listen to for many reasons. So there's one last aspect of storytelling that we haven't discussed. Any thoughts about what I've missed? It's a big one. Anyone want to give it a try? I'll tell you then. Storytelling gives us freedom and autonomy. We can guide our tenants to create the next chapter of their life. The story isn't over yet. We can work with our tenants to visualize and plan for their wish as how they want their story to end. We're giving them power, and we're hopefully giving them some control on determining the next step. So now I would like to move the program over to my colleague, Kate Duff, who is going to discuss the fabulous new StoryCorps app, how you can use the app with your tenants, and how you can use it to preserve and share their stories.
I think I need to grab the microphone over here too.
Sure.
Thank you, Dina. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Duff. Thank you so much for having us here today. Because we believe strongly in the healing power of narrative, we've developed an app that helps people record their own stories and share them with the world. In making it, we wanted to create a tool that would help other nonprofits harness the power of storytelling to further their own missions. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the app and talk about some ideas for using it to incorporate story into your work in the supportive housing community. We're also going to share an excerpt from an actual recording that was done using the StoryCorps app. Last week, Dina and I visited the Fortune Society housing at Castle Gardens Uptown, where we met Derek and his mentor, Stan Richards, who very generously shared their story with us by recording a conversation on the app. It was a really great experience, and I hope I won't embarrass anybody if I say I think we all made some new friends. So we're going to play an excerpt from their interview and hear their feedback on the experience. And after we hear from them, we'll open up a general Q&A to the broader group, and we thought we could workshop some ideas and brainstorm a little bit about how we can all incorporate this technology into our work. That having a conversation with a trusted friend, a family member, or a mentor can be a very powerful experience for healing. We also believe that you can get the benefit of telling your story, whether you're using a cave painting, a Greek vase, or something a little bit more modern, okay, like a smartphone. Ultimately, what it all comes down to, and the most important thing, is picking a partner who means something to you. The rest of it is just getting your head around the technology, and the app is designed to help you with that. So it's available for iPhone and for Android. It's pretty simple to use. I see some people pulling out their phones right now. Are we having live downloads? This is like my dream come true. Download it now. Go ahead, yeah. It's pretty simple to use. It contains suggestions for questions to ask your partner, or you can go ahead and ask your partner whatever you want. You can write your own questions. It has a timer that helps with the pacing of conversations. We recommend about 40 minutes, but it can be shorter than that if you don't want to talk for that long. Once you record your conversation, you can choose to keep it private on your phone, or you can choose to publish it, in which case it will appear online at StoryCorps.me. And if you do that, your story will be public to the world, and it will also be archived at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, right from your phone. So this is a really powerful tool that opens up the storytelling experience to anyone with a smartphone. One important fact about this app is that it is in what is called a public beta testing period. This means that it's in an early phase of product development. It's a work in progress, okay? We know, for example, that it doesn't work so well on iPads, but it works really well on iPhone and Android devices. So we have every reason to believe that you're gonna have a great experience with it, but if you hit any hiccups along the way, we really want your feedback, and I hope you'll understand that it's all part of our process as we develop this work in progress. Okay, enough of that part. Let's just imagine you've downloaded the app, you wanna record a story, what are you gonna do next? I like to think about this in terms of the 3 Ps, okay? Partner, prep, and place, okay? So you choose your partner, you do that yourself. Technology has gotten pretty good these days, but it can't choose the partner for you. It isn't Tinder, okay? Not a dating app. Now, you might find that a mentor or a coach could be a great choice. Maybe you want to have a conversation with a parent or a sibling. Next, prep. Think about your conversation in advance. Have a plan for what you want to talk about. It's always good to have a plan, even if your plan changes. The 3rd P is place. What I mean by this is choose a quiet space. For the best sound quality, you're going to want to do your recording indoors, okay? So not outdoors, indoors, and take some steps to minimize any external noise. So turn off the TV, turn off any alarms, don't put on the tea kettle right before you sit down to conduct your recording. A few things to know: while your ear might gradually adjust to ambient noise and drown out background sounds, the recording device on your phone will not do that. So if you're lucky enough to have AC where you live, turn off your air conditioner before you begin your conversation. Otherwise, you're going to have that background hum all through your recording. Some other advice about place: when you're choosing your room, you're going to have better sound quality if you use rooms that have carpeted floors or a rug. You could even put down a towel if you need to absorb some sound. Drop ceilings are really good for sound quality. Full bookcases instead of empty ones, and closed windows and closed drapes. I bet you didn't think you were going to be getting decorating advice today. If you're not sure if the room is going to work, or you want to test it out, you can do what we call the clap test. So you clap, and if you hear an echo, then that means that you probably want to take effort to put some extra towels on the floor or hang something on the wall. You can then clap again, and you should notice that there will be less echo. Okay, so that's your 3 Ps. That's your partner, your prep, and your place. But we also have some insights to share about the actual conversation part of the story. So, while you're conducting your interview, do not rush through your list of questions like it's a checklist of tasks to be done. Instead, try to listen closely, ask follow-up questions, and let the conversation flow naturally. You really never know what kinds of unexpected and wonderful things you might learn about your partner, no matter how well you think you already know them. Another tip is to hold your phone about 6 inches away from the speaker for the best sound quality. The app has a timer in it, so keep an eye on the timer because you're going to find that 40 minutes actually goes by a lot faster than you think. And finally, don't be afraid to ask personal questions. How did it feel on the first day you moved into your apartment? Tell me about an important person in your life. When you think about your journey, what is a challenge you have faced, and how did you begin to overcome it? These can all result in very powerful responses. Once you've recorded a conversation with someone, you might be wondering what to do with it. The good news is, it's your story and you have a lot of options. So, you can keep it private on your phone. You don't have to share it with anyone if you don't want to do that. You could even delete it if that's what you prefer. It might be interesting to you to share your story with only a small group of trusted friends or family. That's possible too. If that's your choice, you should not publish your interview from your phone. Rather, you should just keep it local on your device, and you can play it whenever you want, for your mom, for your sibling, for a counselor, a coach, or a support group. You can choose. It's your story. Maybe you do want to share your story with the world, and we can help you with that too. If you and your partner agree to publish your interview, the app will prompt you through that process, and your story will be published online to our platform at StoryCorps.me. If you do that, anyone in the world can listen to your story. You can share it by sending a link in an email. You can share your story on social media. And if you publish to StoryCorps.me, your story will also be archived at the Library of Congress. If you're interested in placing your audio file onto your website or your personal blog, you can do that. In fact, you can use it in any other way that you want to create awareness about your life or about your mission. So, last week, Dina and I visited Castle Gardens, and we met Derek and Stan, and they volunteered to test the app out for us. They have courageously agreed to share an edited excerpt from their conversation with the audience today.
Sort of make amends to the community, to the family that was involved in your case.
Honestly, first thing I had to do was learn how to forgive myself. Then I started just giving back by helping other people. But when I went to the parole board, the last time I went to the parole board, I wrote a letter to the family of the victims. I wrote a letter to the judge, my family, and I apologized to everybody. Whereas I recognized that it had a snowball effect. It was his mother, it was his brother, it was his sister, it was his son, it was my sons, it was my daughters, it was my mother, it was my sisters. You know, it was the community. And it just felt good to do good and to give back.
How did you communicate that to your family?
You know what? You can't never hide nothing from your mother. Mom said, you know, I see you change. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I know when you changed, boy. You just didn't know it. I seen it. And that's when she started bringing more people around, not just my family members on visits. She started bringing her friends around, you know what I'm saying, so I can talk to them. Or their sons, if their sons have problems, you know, she was bringing them up.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, Stan.
I know your journey. I admire your journey. And I always say I admire for so many people doing so much time that you all managed to maintain your humanity. Just blows me away, and I'm in awe of it. So thank you, man.
Thank you.
How did you, in your own process?
I've about had enough of that. So thank you so much. That was really incredible. And we thought what we'd do now was talk to Derek and Stan a little bit about their experience using the app. And I'll get it started. Would you please share your impressions of the experience of interviewing each other?
Good afternoon, all. First, I want to wake you up. Because I seen a whole lot of nodding going on. And I was doing the same thing. Sitting up here in front of everybody. But it was a marvelous experience, though. And it brings back to when I was incarcerated. I used to tell my family to record my grandmother, my aunt, because they had stories, and no one would tell the stories the way they told it, and this brought it all back, like, really? You got people out here thinking the same way I'm thinking, that, once people go, someone else telling the story is not going to be the same way the person who knew the story told it, so it's being preserved. And to be interviewed by, a mentor, someone that you respect, someone that helped you in your transition and coming home after 25 years, it felt great, and he doesn't disappoint me because he's always there. He's always mentoring me. So for him to, want to do the interview gave me a whole lot of good feelings, and I appreciate it. Very much so. So it was easy to share with someone that you trust. And that's very important when you tell your story. You want to tell it to the right person. After you tell it to the right person, then everybody else is okay. But you shared it with somebody that was very important to you. So.
This mic is off, Sonny.
Okay, I'm going to share the mic with you then.
Appreciate you. For me, it was at first when we first were asked to do it, I was looking for all the right questions. I looked at the website. They shared questions with us, and then him and I were meeting every week. We were coming up with thinking about like what are the right questions, and then it dawned on both of us, for me in particular, that what I want to ask him is what I want to know about his life, and so. It wasn't about the pen and paper, it wasn't about the questions, it was about my genuine desire to understand him from his perspective. And so the entire interview I took as an opportunity to learn about him and his journey and his lens and his family. And so that was a really important lesson because I was really struggling with the questions. And at the end of the day, it was, what do I want to know about Derek's life? And those are the questions that drive the interview.
Thank you. Did anything else surprise you about the experience?
Well, for me, I learned something about, I've known Derek since 2012 when he first came home from prison. And, so I knew about his story, I knew about his journey. But there was one question that you played where I asked him, at what point in your life did it happen for you? The moment when you said things are going to be different, that you were going to be different. And his answer was, when I learned how to forgive myself. And, in this work, we always think about when those moments, where do those moments happen? How do they happen? Do they happen when we give somebody a place to live? Does it happen when we give somebody a welcome home? Does it happen when we provide education? And I learned for him, which was also true for me, that change happened when you forgave yourself. So I learned a ton about him.
That was a hard one, too, because it took me a while, to really come up, and understand myself, or humanity itself, and how to move on. Because until certain things happen in your life, you can basically be stuck. And I was like kind of stuck until I realized, like, listen, it begins with me and it ends with me. So I have to begin, right at home. So I looked in the mirror. It's like, yo, seriously, I forgive you. Looking eye to eye. How Mike said, the man in the mirror. I'm asking you to make a change. I had to make the change. And Stan was the only person that ever asked me that question. The only person. So it was only two people that knew at that time. Me, and then him, you know? And it gets easier every time. You know, the more you open up, the easier it becomes. You know, especially if you're honest with yourself, then you can be honest with everybody else. And that's where it counts. That's why it's easy to do it. Because I have to be honest with me in order to be honest with you.
So Stan, after doing this interview with Derek, do you think it would resonate to continue using this process with other residents in the community?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in talks with Ernie Drucker to do more StoryCorps work with the Castle folks. And I encourage people to do it with your family, to do it with your friend. Joanne Page, our president and CEO, is here, and her father just celebrated. Her father just celebrated 70 years being released from a concentration camp. What an amazing, amazing opportunity it would be to share his story and to document his story, and your mom's. And so I would encourage all of us, we are definitely going to be using it in our work. It is a way of connecting with people in ways that you haven't gotten connected before. It is a way of people telling their story, and I think it's critically important to be able to listen to people. It really validates who they are and what they bring to the table.
Well, thank you. We'd now like to open the conversation a little bit more generally, and we would love to hear your questions or your ideas about how you might use this in your work. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah. You. Yes.
Can you stand up?
If we upload the story to the StoryCorps.me, is there a chance that it would get on a podcast or NPR Friday morning? I think it's like to tell our clients, and if so, like, would that be cleared with them first, or is that like it's up there?
So there are not currently app interviews that are being edited for podcast or for NPR broadcast. And the reason for that is because the audio quality on the recording, even if you follow all the tips that we talked about before, is just not quite what it needs to be for broadcast quality. Now, I'll never say never on that, but if it were to happen, to address the second part of your question, we would, of course, request consent from the account holder and any participants in the issue before anything were to go forward.
Was this recorded on a phone pass between the two of you, like 6 inches from your mouth? The sound quality was really good. I don't know if that's on the speakers.
It was done on this phone. And it was held like this, and Derek and I spoke.
I think what was special about the recording, however, is Castle Gardens does have a studio, so the room was incredibly soundproofed and quiet, which is probably a different setting than many of you will be recording an app interview. And I think that's what led to such incredible sound quality on that app interview.
Yes.
Has any program, organization, outreach used StoryCorps for any type of promotions or something like that?
Sure. As you heard Dave say this morning, 35 to 50% of our interview slots are reserved for people from diverse community organizations, and we encourage those organizations to use the content, to put up on their websites, to use in development promotions, to share in support groups. As you heard me say, I have used the StoryCorps content in caregiver groups with people with Alzheimer's, with elders, So we hope that when you record with us, you will find different ways to use the content. And I think that's what's really exciting to us, is when individuals do a recording at one of our booths, they leave with a free CD. After that, the creativity is really all yours, and we support you in using it that way.
How does it work with the consent? With the, I mean, like, if you interview with somebody, a tenant in a building, obviously you need to have permission, I guess, at a certain point discuss. Can you explain that? How does it work?
Yes, absolutely. Consent is very important. So if you create an account on your phone, the person who's the registered account holder becomes the owner of that audio file. And per our terms of use, and if you're about to upload something, the app is going to prompt you to say that, just to affirm that you have the consent of all participants in the interview before you upload that. So the person whose account it is responsible for that. And of course, you wouldn't want to publish anything on the internet that you did not have consent to publish, especially because stories can be very personal. Right.
It looks like you have a second part to that question.
Yes, please, follow up.
Please stand up so everyone can hear you.
Yeah, let's say I made a recording with a tenant.
Yeah.
With the consent of the tenant in the building. But you said that it's still be under my responsibility as the person who holds the phone to be the one who is accountable for the privacy of the person that I'm recording, correct?
It depends whose account you recorded it under. So if the tenant is the account holder, then the tenant and the person who's interviewed can make the decision whether or not to publish that. And anything that is published can always be deleted and taken down offline as well. But again, it's the registered account holder who is responsible for checking in with anyone who participated in the recording that there's consent to publish it.
Just one little thing, I'm going to stop.
You're good. Keep it coming.
Let's say in the case of Stanley and Derek, this was your phone, correct?
It's actually
It was their phone. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually on.
But I mean, do you think it will be then better to do it on the tenant's phone? Because then it will be more, you know what I mean?
I would recommend that. I would. I think.
It creates a little bit the question of how many tenants will have a smartphone because of the price of the, you know,
Sure.
supported housing. Most of them are using those,
Right.
you know, self-lane
Right.
phones. But
What-
anyway, I think you clarify a little bit what could be done. I think it will be good to explore that, to give possibilities to places like ours to use it more. But you know, those questions kind of clear.
Sure.
Or if you use it on your phone, create a release of information or a consent to participate, just have them sign off on it and have that be part of their client record.
Or can you also just create an account for every tenant that wants to do it and use multiple accounts on your phone?
That would work. So at this time, it is not possible to take a phone recorded interview and translate it into a CD. We are, I think I mentioned before, we're in a public beta testing period right now, so we don't have all of the features that we would like to have eventually as we continue to work on this technology. So I hear you, and I think that there's a strong need for something like that. And we'll take it under advisement as we continue to expand the offerings that are available under the app. Yeah.
You're able to listen to already, I guess, downloaded stories on the actual app that have been published?
Anything that has been published by an app user, you can listen to on the app. Yeah, you can browse.
Okay, that was my next question. Like the navigation piece of the actual app, are there keywords that you can type in based on maybe what type of story you're looking for? Say you want to use it in different types of forums or different types of support groups, and maybe share different examples of different types of stories, maybe survivors or different areas of
Yeah, well, you've hit the nail right on the head. You would do it with keywords. So at the moment of uploading or publishing an interview, as a user, you'll have an opportunity to assign keywords to that audio file. You don't have to, but if you do, it will make that file searchable by whatever those terms are: marriage, friendship, baseball. The important thing to know is that the search has to be done from a desktop or from StoryCorps.me. It's not available in the app right now. So while there is this sort of archiving and classification of different kinds of stories by these keywords, it's not something that you'll be able to browse and search in your phone for a couple of months. Yeah.
Once you share that app on the website, is there any way to download it on your computer? Or it's just you can only listen to it on the website?
No, it's tied to the StoryCorps.me platform. But if it's active there, then you can share it to social or send a link to it. It's just that it will always refer back to StoryCorps.me. But you will be able to also embed the audio onto your own personal blog or site. So, for example, if your organization has appropriate consents and wants to feature 2 or 3 stories that were collected on this, as long as they're active on StoryCorps.me, they can also be active as audio files in another location.
There's a lady behind. Yes.
Yeah.
Please stand up.
So how do you get from a 40-minute interview to like a 3-minute, more nicely edited? It sounds like you can't currently download the story. I was going to ask if there's any software or sort of best practices, in order to use them for development. You might have to be a little more polished. Any recommendations? Is that in the future?
I do have some recommendations. It comes as a surprise to a lot of people who are familiar with StoryCorps from our NPR broadcasts or from hearing a presentation like this one, that a StoryCorps interview is actually 40 minutes long and not just a 90-second or a 3-minute segment. There is an excerpting feature in the app and in the StoryCorps.me platform right now, so you can take a clip, but it's a little bit of a rough tool, okay? You got to start and finish. You can't piece pieces together. So that's something that we're hoping to expand in later versions of the technology. However, for now, if there are moments in an interview that you know are very powerful and you'd like to have a listening event or play part of your interview, you can also keep notes to yourself. Key it up for minute 5, or if, there's an exciting moment at minute 14.
So, and as she said, we want a CD. They'll turn around and look and say, "Oh, that's easy," and they'll have the whole StoryCorps on the CD. So, is it possible to put something like that to say, "Hey, you know what? If that's the case, this is what you're doing since you already own it. It is your account, so you already own it."
I think anything is possible. I can't speak as an expert on that particular aspect of the technology. My recommendation, however, is that because this is not something that is built into the services, I wouldn't present that as a recommended use. Now, what my nieces and nephews can do is another story.
So I have a question for you. Can anyone in the room share with us if you are using storytelling as a therapeutic intervention with residents in the work that you do? Oh, great. Can you stand up and share that with us?
I use it a lot to relate to folks. If I feel it has a common thread. But I would like to mention that when I was working, I also did stints with geriatric folks. And there was, I don't know if you have heard the magazine Reminiscence. Reminiscence was a wonderful tool for getting everybody talking about the past and how things used to be and how they're adjusting to how things are now. But I don't work with geriatrics anymore, but at least not currently. But I still use stories that if I feel that it relates to a current challenge or a current situation that they're dealing with, as long as it's in context, I think it's pretty effective. And as long as it's not anything that's too personal or going to push the wrong button or anything like that, as long as you can wield it properly, a good story can help a person put things in perspective. So, yeah, I get it. I don't know if I could give a fine example off the top of my head, though, because they're very spontaneous, but, yeah, it's very effective. It can really bond with the person and establish trust and help you relate to and help the person relate to you as well. I think it's very humanizing. I was just about to ask you guys during the Q&A if you're thinking about other applications to this, like bigger applications. That this is great, but I mean, I think that you hear younger people, and that's the people that we really got to focus on. People that are under 20, they're hearing all kinds of stories, and not all those stories are good, and not all those stories are right, and a lot of them are sensationalistic, and or sell something, and you're in a culture war here, guys. You really are. You want a better country. You gotta tell the right story. You know, you gotta tell it quick. Once the kids to a certain age, they get back and listen anymore. They're gonna have to find out for themselves.
Thank you. Question up here?
I just wanted to add, too, David Rothenberg just reminded me, every Thursday we have a community meeting up at the castle. And when we close that meeting, we ask people to say one word about how they're feeling, just to get people to start thinking about what's going on for them. And then sharing that, because inevitably somebody always needs some support, and everybody has the capacity to give support. And from time to time, and I think I shared this with you as well, we ask people to talk a letter to themselves. That right now, given what you know about your life and what you've experienced, what would you say to a younger self? And we have about 4 or 5 residents at the end of the meeting talk a letter to themselves, and it's very, very powerful. You hear forgiveness. It's amazing.
I want to add to this, right? Everybody in here tells stories. The stories that we tell are our experiences to younger people that think that what they're doing today hasn't been done before. I remember when I did such and such and such and such, you know, just to let them know, like, listen, you're not really that slick. But you're really not, you know. But honestly, we all tell them. And the beginning of the presentation, there were pictures that were showed about how far back storytelling goes. You know, it's how we look at them. You know, how we identify things. You know, to understand. Once you understand, oh, that's what that is. I've been doing that all my life. I mean, really. It's what we do. That's what we do as human beings. We tell stories and we relate experiences so that others can identify. And hopefully, they don't have to go through the same trials and tribulations that we've went through. You know, and that's why I share my story, because I really don't want somebody to do what I had to do, you know what I'm saying, to get the experience that I have. But what I was always told was that kept knowledge is dead knowledge. If I keep it to myself and don't share it, then it dies with me. But if I share it, I may be able to save someone else. You know, so that's what we do when we share our stories. We save lives. Now we're talking about recording it on a larger scale, you know, whereas it can be passed down. So if you heard, you know, or if you was in there this morning when Dave was giving the presentation and he showed some of the stories, they were real stories, though, and they were very sentimental and they were very touching, regardless of the age, you know. When people share, you know, I respect them even more, and I appreciate them even more, because now I have an insight to an individual, to a life, to an experience that was shared. Freely given. One of the things that Ms. Page always says, Joanne always says, that, you know, when we come into the castle, is that, you know, you don't have to, you have a responsibility, but it's not financially. It's only to give back. As easy as, you know, is given, or as easy as is received, it's as easy as you give back, you know? So that's the responsibility, to help someone else. Someone easily helped me, so I'm gonna easily help someone else. And we pass it on.
There's a gentleman who had his hand up, yes.
Just a quick technical question. In this day and age of multiple passwords, forgetting passwords, whatever have you, phone number. I noticed on the review for the app that there's no recovery password, feature enabled. Will that be done soon? Because people forget ABC 1, 2, 3.
So at our launch on March 17th, it was in fact true that the password recovery was not built in. It has been fixed since then. So yeah, we're good.
Is there a limit to how many stories you could do on the app?
No, sky's the limit.
So, I mean, one of the things I was thinking when somebody was talking about the clips that they want to do, if there's a part of it that they like, they could just do a 3-minute clip on another story. Recreate what they talked about already in the 40-minute one, and just do it over and have a 3-minute clip.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't formally use storytelling, but you already took my line, because we get storytelling at our community meetings all the time. I've just found out about StoryCorps. I wish I'd known about it a year earlier. I would have loved to have done this with my father who just passed away. And also being here, just, brought a story to mind for me, because I spent my wedding night in this hotel. So I'm thinking now, okay, me and my husband need to come and do this. I think that for our tenants, it may be a wonderful idea to do when they're coming into us, because a lot of our tenants have been homeless many, many times, coming out of shelters that they may have been in for 2, 3, 4 or more years. And I think coming to home for them for sometimes right then and there is a good idea to do.
And I would encourage you, even though you didn't get a chance to do it with your father, you do it so your family has your story and your family knows what a missed opportunity you had, so they don't have to miss an opportunity.
Over there? Have you thought about doing a collaboration? Because I mean, for everyone here, I'm a part of the younger generation, and Facebook has Humans of NY. Have you ever thought of putting? Because we see the faces and we see the captions, but we don't get to capture the actual voice. We don't get to see how that comes about. And for me, being a huge journalism lover, it's all about putting the voice and the face together and the stories together. So that's one question. And another question was, can you record your own? Because everybody has smartphones. Can you record your own conversations, and can you upload them onto, like you use it on the recording app, and can you put it on story? Can you put it on your app? Or do you just have to use the app alone?
Sure. So for your first question, we are just getting started, and I love the idea of collaborations that would enable multi-platform storytelling. So we're starting here with audio, and there's some, you can take a picture at the end of your recording as well. But my hope is that this is something that will continue to grow, and that through collaborations with different kinds of partners, we might be able to expand our offerings. So sky's the limit on that. For the recording, in order to upload to the platform, you would need to record from within the device. However, if you already have a sound file that's on your desktop, you can upload it directly from your desktop into StoryCorps.me by logging into your account there.
Can I make a non-technical comment?
Please.
47 years ago, in a one-room office on the corner of 46th Street and Broadway. This is a six-story building, a theater building, a Victorian movie theater, and you went behind the box office to go upstairs. So we are on the 6th floor where my office was, which was where the Fortune Society began, and we're on the 6th floor of 46th and Broadway. So it's a little deja vu.
Talk about full circle. Full circle, David.
Did you record that?
I wish we had.
I will.
Can you say it again?
I'm glad you said that, because the next interview is me and you.
Any last questions, thoughts, stories? Oh, good, great.
I think that would be amazing. The Castle is a play that Fortune Society has with
Oh, yeah.
staff who are formerly incarcerated, and they tell amazing stories about
The
their
play.
experiences, and they share it with the public in different venues. I think personally that would be a great.
I like that. Yeah, so yes, you're right. David produced a play called The Castle, and it's a story of four folks who lived at the castle, moved out of the castle, and have reclaimed their life and live in the community. And it's a wonderful story. We use it as a way of educating the public about Fortune Society and housing and the castle, and just the whole process of people reclaiming their lives and this notion of redemption for people, about second chances, giving people a second chance, and seeing people for who they are, not for the crime that they committed. So that's a great, great suggestion. David, you want to say something about it? We should do it.
Commercial.
We should do it.
The play The Castle is, we asked 4 people just to write their story.
Yes.
And where they were born, how they got in trouble, what prison was like, and then what happened when they came to the castle and their transition. And then I interviewed them and put it together, and the play was The Castle. And it's, as Teresa said, it's been playing everywhere. And there's a performance, by the way, on the 14th of June up at the Castle Gardens. We keep doing it. We did it at Rutgers, and we do it in prisons, and we did it at Bennington College. But I want to just tell you one story that's in the play. Thomas Jones, every Thursday night, as Stanley said, we have the community meeting. And Thomas Jones had been there about 6 weeks. Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, you can swear.
As he tells the story in the play, he said he came in, he had been at the castle about 6 weeks, and he came in one night pissed off. That's the swear word.
Everybody was bracing themselves.
He was very angry because he had one pair of pants, and some kids were throwing ketchup around, and it ruined his pants, and he was angry. And he said they were lucky because he realized it was a bunch of young women, and he didn't come out of this prison bed. And Joanne said, "What would you have done if it was a bunch of guys?" And he did all the macho things that would happen. And Joanne simply said to him, "What's more important, your pants or your freedom?" And he argued with her. But he said in the play, tell what happened later. Well, I do a radio program on WBAI, 8 to 10 Saturday morning.
99.5.
We got TJ's measurements, and the next week, and we did an outcry on the radio, and the next week, Joanne and I presented him with 17 pairs. And he says in the play, in the storytelling, that maybe I have a chance.
That one act, yeah.
That's the story.
Y'all see who my mentors are? You see who they are? He tells stories, like, it's okay. I come home from 25 years, my transition, but with great mentors. And I get this all the time. Some of y'all may not get this, but hey, you're getting it now, but it's family, man. And I really appreciate my transition because 25 years is not that easy, and the mindset. But when you're around positive people, you can't do nothing but win, and there is no option. There is no choice, Jail is not an option, Recidivism doesn't make its way into my thoughts because I love the people that I'm around. So it's easy to share. Thank you, David. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Stan. Fortune is a great place. And they need more places like that. And there's a lot of stories that's going to come out of there, and a lot of stories are going to continue to come out of there because of great people.
Thank you.
So thank you. The panel will be here. Please come up, say hello on your way out. We're happy to answer questions, give you some business cards, and hear your stories. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.